Do you think that you enjoy more your experience like this?
100%. So
Yeah.
a couple things. Winter in France, no thank you. No, I mean I love it. If I was a skier, I think I would have a
Mm.
different opinion. Yeah.
What's ironic is she's saying that from the fact that our village is Sospel, but if you go up just up over the mountain and then down to Montagne, that's where most people
Winter.
winter in France, and so we know the climate there is much more mild, much more doux than in winter. So it would be an option, but we will see.
I think having these kind of dual lives of we're 6 months in the state, we make the maximum time in the 6 months that we're here. We visit all the family, we get to spend time with our adult kids. You know, we get to have all the best time when we're here. And then when we go to France, we're there for 6 months, and people, we're having a lot of fun for 6 months there.
Bonjour, I'm Deborah, a French native teacher and a lifelong expat. In this new series, I chat with inspiring English-speaking retirees who made the leap to France. Today, meet Kasha and Kelly, adventurous and positive couple. Let's dive in. Et c'est bon. Bonjour Kasha, bonjour Kelly.
Bonjour Deborah,
Salut, Deborah.
ça va?
Ça va très bien. Et vous, comment ça va?
Ouais, pas mal.
Oui,
Pas
très
mal.
bien pour moi.
Très bien. Well, first of all, thank you very much for accepting to come to the second interview of the series about retiring and moving to France for English speakers, in your case, Americans. And I really liked, we had a talk before, and I really liked your energy and your way of doing things, because let's say that maybe it's not like the most typical way of moving to France. First, it seems to me that you had a lot of preparation. It seems that you were scouting France for a long time, learned the language ahead, and now you are doing part-time France and part-time USA. Right now you are still in the USA. That's where you are calling me from. And you are about to move to France in a few days to live the second part of your year. And I thought that this kind of lifestyle was really interesting. And I think you may inspire some people to follow your examples. And we are going to see during this interview also the pros and cons, and you are going to tell us all about it. But first of all, maybe you'd like to say a word about you, where you're from, where you are right now, and just maybe tell us like what's the origin.
Okay, commence.
So we both met at work. We both worked for the same technology company, and after we got married, we did our honeymoon in France. We did a guided bike tour, and at that time, we only planned the honeymoon 1 month in advance. So I knew no French. I learned a couple of phrases. Luckily, Kasha, she had French in school. She had 4 years of French, but we were in our 40s at that point, and so it had been a while. But I fell in love with France, and I decided at that point I was going to make a commitment to try to learn the language, and so that's how our language learning journey started. So
Oh, well, that's a nice story with la lune de miel, the honeymoon. And yeah, you are a committed cyclist. I forgot to say that in the introduction. It's one of the reasons also maybe like why you connected, no, through this hobby. It seems that you are doing it together.
Yes, and Kelly's originally from Idaho, so not a lot of French influence there. My name is Kasha, and I am from the Washington, D.C. area, and I grew up with a DoD civilian mom who worked for NATO and a military stepdad, so I was very lucky to have gone to Europe pretty often as a teenager and nannied in Switzerland in my high school years for a few months. And I just loved France and French things. And, I had the Paris poster in my room at like age 14 or something. And now we live in North Carolina, Western North Carolina, near Asheville, part-time, and then in Sospel, France, part-time.
Was it since the first trip in France that you started to think of moving away, building this part-time life in France? Was it like the trigger?
Pas du tout. No, it wasn't. We fell in love with France, but at that point in time, we were still working at our corporate jobs, and I mean, it wasn't even a dream, but it was a dream to continue to go back to France and to watch the Tour de France. And so that's what we did for the next basically the next 10 years. We went back almost every other year, and usually it was during the Tour de France. Usually we watched several stages, but the times that we went back, instead of using a guided tour company, we did it on our own, and we were learning the language and getting better and better as time passed. And so the experiences became more and more rich as we kept going back.
I guess it's different because to organize your own tour, you have to make the research and you have to start speaking French. I imagine to reserve, I don't know, some tickets, the hotel and everything.
Yes, and we are vegetarian, so we always had to ask, if we were doing like a demi-pension hotel or a gîte, would it be possible? So that definitely also helped us, made us communicate more frequently.
Yeah.
And then a little later, when we started to really kind of, maybe to 11 years later, when we started to really get interested in spending more and more time in France, and we had quit our corporate jobs, and we were kind of doing like Airbnb and short-term renting in the States. We did a thing called Workaway.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about it. Like that seems
Yes.
to me so interesting. I feel that it's an option that maybe a lot of people don't think about. So explain to us what is Workaway and like how is your experience with Workaways?
Yeah, so workaway.info is a website. We had nothing to do with it. We were just, you register as either a host or a guest worker. And we registered as workers, and you can pick different types of work that you are interested in doing. We happen to be very handy with home renovations. So we looked around and looked for different hosts in different parts of France that we were interested in visiting. And what's great is that when you are there in exchange for your labor, the host family or couple or individual, gives you room and board. And so we're taking meals in as a family with them usually. And it's quite a lovely exchange, not only for the language, but culturally so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine you got to practice a lot of French at this time, no, with the host.
Yes.
Yeah, at that point that was probably after 5 or 6 years of learning French. And so our French still wasn't very amazing, but we were able to communicate pretty well with the host. And one host spoke English, and I think the rest of them did not.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. I imagine if it's more remote, more in the country, maybe people tend to speak less English.
We actually had quite a few French, they're generally younger, but now we did see some older people that were working on farms or doing pet sitting type jobs. And there were quite a few Australian and New Zealanders. So that kind of part of the country, a little more.
But it's handled very well on Workaway. There's filters for the language spoken. There's when you set up a trip or a reservation with a Workaway host, you communicate with them in advance, and so it's not a surprise when you get there whether they speak
Yeah.
French or not, or whether so. Yeah, it's well done.
I imagine it's also handy because you were running on a touristic visa at the time.
Correct.
Yes,
Correct.
Yeah, so you couldn't officially work in France with the touristic visa. So I
correct.
imagine that's a really good option also for the visa situation, to be able to have an activity, not just to do tourism, because for extended period of time, it's quite expensive to stay in France if you don't have
Yes.
your own place for. How long was the workaway
We did
experience?
it for about 2.5 months, and we went to
Yeah.
about 6 different
Hosts.
hosts.
Yeah.
Wow. And you
So,
all have positive experience about that.
except for one, we did end up leaving one early because the house was a disaster.
Okay. Well, it's
But
okay. You've got options. Like,
yeah.
if you don't like it, you just go as you did.
We just left, and we actually found another
Yeah.
host that was even better for us and
Well,
different experience.
And we don't think of it as a negative experience. It was an interesting experience.
yeah. I like the mindset, the
Yes.
perspective on things.
Yeah, and I think if anyone's really like, even has a tiny dream of retiring in France or being part-time in France, it's so important to get off of the touristic track because that is not real life. That is like tourism and eating out every meal and being very, very touristic. We felt it, and we weren't even thinking about living there at that point either. We just kind of wanted to have a real life experience there.
Yeah, that's like the sensation that you both gave me, is that you like to do things, to think a little bit out of the box and to do things in a more creative way. Like, for instance, when you said we came back, but we didn't do like we didn't follow a tour. We created our own. Then you did this workaway. It seems that you like to find like the original way, of doing things.
Also less expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, because in the end, people who have this project may be a bit disillusioned by the cost of it, because to scout, to explore, like the flight ticket and the renting a car and the housing, it sums up, especially if you want to go back every year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's not if you're just gonna again go and stay in hotels and eat out every meal, you're gonna burn through all your retirement money.
There is also this option of house exchange that sometimes people do. That could be also like a good way of swapping your house, or you can do it against points. I feel that when you do have a house in America or in your home country, that could be also a good options, like a cheaper option.
Yes, a
Yes.
great option. They have that house exchange, like you said, their home exchange, I think it's called, and then they also have house sitting, where you watch somebody's house.
But you don't have the contact with the local that you liked in Workaway. And there was
Yes.
actually a French school, a free French school.
Yes.
Yes.
So the timeline: honeymoon in France, then you started to learn French, went back to your country, came back every year? Was it every year that you came back to
Almost every
France?
year.
It was probably averaged to every other year, I think, is what it was.
Maybe 7. So we purchased our home there in 2019. So from 2011 to 28 years is kind of yeah, I think we did like 6 trips there because we did do a house hunting trip.
Well, that happened in 2018, we were very fortunate. We'd sold a house in Florida, and so we had a little bit of money, and then we also have a friend who was interested in helping us out with a house in France, and so we
Was it a
we
French
got
person or an
no
American person?
American
American.
friend. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it just all came together perfectly. And one day when we were biking through our village of Sospel, I just got the crazy idea to maybe buy a house there, because we had this
Oh,
little bit of extra money and this friend who would help us. And of course, Kasha said yes right away. And so that's when we started we went right into a agent immobilier, and we didn't find anything then, but then we went back the next year and found a house. So
when you say that you had these friends that could help you,
she helped
No,
us financially.
financially. She's like a godmother to me, and she's quite wealthy, and she wanted to be able to have a little
I
pied
see.
a terre when she
Okay.
visited. And, that was something that we were actually looking for in our house search, which made it a little more difficult, was we wanted a little separate guest house on the property or a guest bedroom that would allow her to have kind of more privacy when she
Yeah.
visited. So we had a little kind of angel investor, if you
Ah,
will.
yeah, that's fantastic. It's a good setup because you also look after the house, make sure that it's all furnished, and for her, it could end up to be also not cheaper, but yeah, it's good to have also your own place when you move to have some holidays in the south of France.
Yeah.
You said the word pied à terre. I just want to mention that's actually it is hard to translate in English, right? Pied à terre.
I don't think it exists in English, really.
It's quite French. It's like to have a place where you can crash because you can have a pied à terre through your parents' house, your sister's house. Like if your sister lives in Paris, you could say, j'ai un pied à terre à Paris. So you've got this idea and you felt when you went to Sospel and you had this idea, oh, why not to find a place here? It was like an intuition, like you just had a connection for
Coup de
this
cœur.
village. Coup
C'est
de cœur.
coup de cœur.
Really? So you just saw this village and you were like, this is it.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and the circumstances had just worked out financially, and so but before that, I'd never dreamed of it. Before that day, I'd never dreamed of it. So,
Really? Ah, yeah.
yeah,
It's just like, bam.
yeah.
What about Sospel? Can you say a word about this dream, coup de cœur village?
Yeah, so because we're cyclists, it's in the southern point of the Alps, and it's about 45 minutes from Nice and about 35 minutes from Menton and Monaco. But it's up over the mountains in a valley, and so it's this little village tucked in this valley with a river that runs through that has been there we have a old bridge in our village, the Vieux Pont, which dates back to the seventh century, and it was part of the salt route between Marseille and
Turin in Italy.
or Milan.
Or Milan.
I think it was Milan.
Yeah.
It's really idyllic for cyclists because, especially if you like to climb, because everything goes up from our village, and we have probably 10 amazing cycling options. But it's also great for hiking.
It's on the GR52, the GR52, which is quite well known.
And the thing is, so we knew that much when we were deciding to buy there, but what we didn't know, there were so many things that after we moved in that were so positive about the place that were just pleasant surprises. We're right next to the Parc de Mercantour, and we had no idea, and that's a huge treasure in France. Our village has turned out to be just perfect for us. Our neighbors, we're very integrated into the village.
You mentioned to me that there is not a lot of foreigners, there is not a lot of expats in the village, no?
I think we are the only Americans in the village of about 3,500 people.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes.
So you must be in French we say they must chouchouter, vous chouchouter, like when people like other people, they are really like looking after them. So they must treat you very well, I'm sure.
That is actually very true. But we do everything in the village. It's as if we have lived there as well. You know, we go to, I sent you some photos. One of those photos is the village, the mayor. He has a talk, like a state of the town every summer. And we go to that, and we go to all of the town's festivals and parties, and we're really quite integrated
Oh
into
wow,
the village.
that's amazing. Like to be part of.
It is, and none of it would be possible if we didn't have a reasonably fluent level of French. That's the only thing that makes all of this possible.
You mentioned that a lot of your fellow Americans sometimes move to France straight away without necessarily like studying French before. And yourself, you had a bit of time. Like Kasha, you studied French before. You lived a little bit in Switzerland, or you had a little bit of a background there. And Kelly, you worked really hard. So can you just mention a little bit your journey with French and how you felt that it was really part of your integration? Say a bit of more precisions about it.
So I knew, like I said, after my honeymoon, I knew only a few phrases, but decided that I was going to learn it. And I come from an engineering background, and I thought if I just study really hard for 1 year, I can become fluent. So I purchased Rosetta Stone. I studied hard for 1 year. We went back. I couldn't understand a thing.
So what is study hard for you? Can you say for our listeners, what does
So,
that mean? Because I think it's relative to every person.
yeah, good point. So for me, studying hard, it's 1 to 2 to 3 hours a day, and
Okay,
so
well,
and Rosetta Stone was six different. Back this was 12, 13 years ago. So this was it was on CDs. It wasn't even on the internet. But I completed and I think Rosetta Stone is great, but
And why is it great though? Because it doesn't go from French to English.
yeah,
It only uses images like a baby learns.
and all French words, no English words. So there's no translating. There's no crutch of translation. So anyway, but you have to start somewhere, and so I started with that. I think it was a great start, and you have to do that. But I found out that language learning is just way harder than I thought. At least for me. Maybe for other people it's easier. But it took me a good 8 years of studying a little bit every day, at least an hour every day for about 8 years before I got to the level that I'm at and to where I'm happy with.
an opportunity to introduce my online French school called Feel Good French. You can go to my website where there is a lot of content that I crafted also specifically for expat and retirees. There is a blog with a lot of articles, and I wanted to say Kelly's journey, it's his own. So don't worry, it might not take 8 years for you to learn French. Everyone learns differently. So what I propose to you is more than teaching, it's actually coaching. That means that together we are going to set up some goals. I'm going to motivate you. I'm going to be your commitment partner. And yeah, we can meet weekly and we can really focus on learning practical French, things that are tailor-made specifically for your need. Have a look to the website, and I also these days offer group classes that's going to start mid-June, and it's going to be like a summer boost. Let's call it workshop. It's a workshop with like-minded people, a nice community, very, very small group. It's going to be friendly. I invite you to sign up in this very page there. And yeah, let's speak. On y va.
I mean, he is fully fluent and has a very deep vocabulary, much more, because I don't study very much. I watch a lot of Netflix.
Okay, well, that's a way of studying, like just through immersion. No, it's like a little immersion that you can create in your house, and or even when you are in France, you have the full immersion. And yeah, I think maybe you don't study while sitting on a table with a book, but you study in your own way, I imagine.
Yes, and well, we only speak French to each other. When we're in France, even at home, we speak French to each other. And so it is true, she's amazing. For the amount of time she puts into it, her level is way higher than mine would be. But she gets a little bit of osmosis through me too, because I'm constantly speaking French to her, even though it's with my accent. So I also, unfortunately, I teach her some bad mistakes too if I'm not. But
This is why it's good to have a tutor.
So how do you discipline yourself to speak French together? Because I know it's a bit hard when we have a habit. Like, for instance, my partner is from New Zealand. We speak English together. And when we are in Spain or in France, it's really hard for me to impose to our relation to change the language because we are so used to speak English together. So how, like, that requires a bit of self-discipline, no? To say, okay, let's speak French.
So,
we're cyclists, so we're we're athletes.
Okay.
We both grew up as athletes. But yeah, it does, and sometimes it is very frustrating for me. I'm like, I just want to speak. My brain just wants a break because your native language is always an easier part for your brain. But over the 10 years, I have come to realize how beneficial it is for me to stay in the mind track of speaking French.
That's inspiring to see, like, also that how you use your relationship to progress.
I almost think it's necessary. When I do something, I have to be all in because it's hard for me to learn things, and the only way to do it for me, and it may not work for everybody, but is to be all in. And so, it's pretty much I almost insist that I have to do it that way.
I don't know for you how you felt with French language, but personally, I had it with Spanish, so I speak English and Spanish. And I moved to Spain when I was maybe 21 years old. And I remember that at the beginning, I always wanted to translate because I love French, I love words and my language, and I wanted this accuracy. I had an ID, and the ID used to go through the filter of French. And then it would go towards Spanish. And that would be very frustrating because sometimes I was not able to find the Spanish word or simply it didn't exist. And I remember, I don't know, I have a vivid image of this moment where something in me, I let go of something. I let go of this desire to translate. And I just decided, as a fisherman, to just fish for a word or an expression approximative to my ID. And suddenly I stopped using this filter of French. And I think that's why sometimes the mindset, how people can be a little bit rigid, because it's rigidity in the end. It's like, I have this idea, I want to say it the way I want to say it. So not to use your mother tongue and try to be resourceful and use what you already know in the French language. I don't know if there was a moment like that for you.
Yeah, usually my second glass of wine.
Yeah, true. That's true. That's also does the job.
No, how about you, for real?
No, I've had the exact same experience, I think. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Also, music. I'm really into French. Well, Kelly's really into the older 50s, 60s, 70s French music. I'm into the newer stuff. Not rap so much, but like Julien Doré, all the like soft
Yeah.
rock pop French
Yeah.
music.
Mention names to us. Tell us names of bands you like that's going to inspire, and I might put some picture. What bands and singers do you listen to?
Well, we listen to Zaz a lot. Do you know
Uh-huh.
Zaz? Yes.
Of course, of course.
Stromae.
Stromae.
Stromae is from Belgium, yeah.
Yes. But in French and easy
Yeah.
to pick out the words.
Yeah, but I love Jacques Brel.
It's funny you mentioned Jacques Brel because I think he's a dear influence to Stromae. I think
Yes,
Stromae
yes,
is a bit
yes.
influenced by Brel.
Yeah, and Georges Brassens, Charles Aznavour.
Oh, oui, Charles.
That's amazing that you get to know all of those musicians because they are really part of the culture. And I feel like it's like d'une pierre deux coups to
Yes,
Oui.
kill two birds with one stone.
Exactly.
Because it's really part of the culture, and language and culture are very intertwined. And to know Georges Brassens or Charles Aznavour, I think it's really going to make you closer to what is France, what is French language. Because also someone like some poet like Georges Brassens or Jacques Brel, they really make the language evolve. I think they have an impact on the language itself.
Interesting.
So what was your way to listen to the music? Did you listen to the music without the lyrics and then you were reading the lyrics? Do you have a little way of doing it?
So when we first started listening to French music, that was probably Stromae was probably one of the first. And, of course we recognized some of the words and as we listened to it more and more, we start to sing the words. We maybe didn't, Stromae's, he's very rich in his lyrics. And so we maybe didn't understand exactly
There is
what
a
we.
bit of familiar colloquial words and some
Yeah.
verlan. Do you know
Oh, we
the
fils de pute. I
verlan?
mean, there's some,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's more modern.
Yeah.
Yes, and so then yes, then we started to look at the transcripts, but we can enjoy it in both ways, so that without knowing what we're singing and saying, but then when we look it up, it makes it even more rich and interesting. So
I can picture you with a glass of wine doing karaoke together in the living room.
yeah, alors on danse.
Yeah. Alors on danse. Ouais.
Uh,
Ouais.
Also, YouTube has a great algorithm for, once I started liking a few, like I like Julian Dore, hate him or love him, I like him.
Oh, he
And
was a sensation. I just knew him from, he was revealed by this TV reality show.
yes,
I don't know if you saw his first video, and he was a sensation because he made some remake of like a not so great song, but he really made the song his own, and he really changed them. And at the time, everyone was absolutely obsessed with him. And yeah, Julien Doré. I will put a reference.
so once you start liking a few French singers in YouTube, it will generally start kind of introducing you to more and more. And I also like EDM music, which is like electronic dance music. And France has a very rich, repertoire of French dance EDM music, which is kind of fun if
Ah.
you're in the party mood.
Nice. You also mentioned to me, I thought the story was really cute, that you learned through books and in a bit of a random way. Can you tell us about that, Kelly?
Yeah, yeah. So in our village, we have a couple of places. One's the library and one's a secondhand store where they have free books. And so I started taking home these free books, and a lot of the times it was romance novels. And I told you I come from a scientific background, and I don't read a lot of fiction in English. I've only read one novel in my life in English.
How could you get away with that? Do you not read, is it not mandatory at school to read those classic novels?
Well, so not the entire. So I would read, in school for English class, you would read excerpts, so small sections of literature. But I read the bare minimum, whatever it took to just get by and pass. But in France, so now I'm taking home these free novels, these romance novels, and I've probably read about 40 or 50 of them, and most of them, I find that they're very interesting language because it's actually very useful language. Even though it's not something I would read in English, it's quite of it's a rich experience for learning the language, even the romance novels.
That's interesting how you also evolved, how your personality, if you weren't prone to read those romance novels, but the fact that you moved to France, like kind of changed something in you then.
Yeah, you kind of, that might be normal or might be just us, but I think you can become a different person when you actually you're in a different culture, you're speaking a different language. The language is organized maybe slightly different to make you think even slightly differently. And so yeah, so when we were over there, and then if you only speak in French, that is a switch also. And so yeah, you do kind of if you allow yourself to be, you become a different person if you want to.
Because also, I believe that languages, they carry a frequency. Like, I don't know, like the frequency of English is different from the frequency of French. So maybe this very melody and frequency opens you up to something else because you seem to really connect to the culture and like you seem to absorb everything, like the full experience when you are in France. So maybe also you just go for it. As you say, you go all in. So
Yeah,
you just become this.
Jean Kelly.
yeah.
Il a devenu Jean Kelly en France.
Ah, le nouvel homme.
Just it's so interesting because we actually even dress better when we're in France. Because like I live in yoga pants and a t-shirt in America, and then over there, like I have dresses and purses that match my dresses.
Ah,
I mean, I'm much more refined there, even though our village is, it's kind of a country village, but you know, people do dress up when they go to do things, especially parties or fêtes.
yeah.
And so, yeah, like even those little subtle differences in how you dress, we
Mm,
did not do what a lot of Americans do. We did not pack up a big freight box
yeah.
of things. We bought almost everything there from France. You know, we didn't
including our clothing
our clothing that we purchased
Mm.
there.
from
We
secondhand stores. So yeah.
yeah.
Ah, nice. Yeah. But those changes that you observe, like the change of style and reading novel books, fiction books, do you bring them with you when you go back to America? Does
Yes.
that remains with you?
Yeah, I continued. In fact, most of my suitcase is books when I come.
Coming back to the States is like 100 pounds of books.
Oh, you need those books with you.
Yeah.
I'm going to share the list because you wrote a list for us. So I'm going to share it with the listeners because I think they are really interesting books and sometimes very random.
Yes. Also, just quickly, like logistically, like I mentioned, like we did not ship a big box of fur or clothing. We bought bicycles there. We didn't bring our bikes. Um, and other things, you know, that made this feasible for us is that we do rent out our American home when we are not here. So 5 months of the year. So we rent out our American home on vacation rental by owner, an Airbnb while we are away in France. And that does actually help kind of pay for the running of things here while we're over there having fun. So.
Yeah, so thank you for mentioning it because I imagine that people also want to listen to the logistic behind it. You are about to go to France now. How does that work for the visa? Is it exhausting for you to do the trip? Tell us about the whole logistic behind the scene, like how things work, and if you can see yourself doing it for a long term, or if you think that at some point you are going to switch for a more permanent way of living in France.
So we've been doing it since 2019 when we first purchased the house, and we do the long stay tourist visa, which allows us to stay 3 months to a year, but we choose just to do 6 months. It is quite an arduous, difficult process. It's a lot of paperwork, and it doesn't matter if you've been previously approved, you have to continue to do it every year. But I mean, now that it's our 2019 sixth year of doing it, pretty much understand the process. It doesn't change too much, but it is a lot of paperwork, and we have to drive to a VFS or a consulate office to do the biometrics. So that is every
Okay.
year. It's
Yeah.
a lot.
Well,
Yeah, and given our circumstance, it's the only way we know that we can stay there for 6 months. We, there are other options. If you're a student, there's student visas. If you work in France,
okay.
obviously there's work visas. If you're, if you can get a talent visa, like we know a cyclist friend who
Ah,
had a talent visa, and I think there's a religious visa also. But we don't apply for, or none of those apply to us, and so.
even the cyclist visa, you couldn't use your athlete skills.
We no, we're a little bit beyond, a little up in age to be on a
Yeah.
sponsored by a bike team at this point.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about driving in France? Can you just use the international license to
Yeah,
drive?
we just use our American license. Evidently, our state has reciprocity with France and we have a car there that we insure through a large international insurance company. And I think because we are only there, we usually are there a little under 6 months. So I think because we are there under that amount of time, we don't have to get the French driver's license.
I think you mentioned to me earlier that right now, your circumstances with the family, it's important for you to still be in the US. But do you think that eventually, do you have like this vision that one day maybe you may switch to live in France fully, or you still don't know?
Yeah, no, it's a possibility. We love France, and so that would not be a bad thing. But yeah, we still have a lot of family here in the U.S. So we will see. We don't know exactly what our future holds.
And do you feel that this, this 6 months, 6 months configuration makes you live the most out of each country? Do you think that you enjoy more your experience like this?
100%.
Yeah.
So a couple of things. Winter in France, no thank you. No, I mean I love it. If I was a skier, I think I would have a different opinion. Yeah.
What's ironic is she's saying that from the fact that our village is Sospel, but if you go up just up over the mountain and then down to Monton, that's where most people
Winter.
winter in France, and so we know the climate there is much more mild, much more doux than in winter. So it would be an option, but we will see.
I think having these kind of dual lives of we're 6 months in the state, we make the maximum time in the 6 months that we're here. We visit all the family. We get to spend time with our adult kids. You know, we get to have all the best time when we're here. And then when we go to France, we're there for 6 months, and people, we're having a lot of fun for 6 months there.
But do you consider when you think of France, do you call it home, or do you think that it's like a little bit of your holidays part of the year, or you think it's home and you feel very settled there and grounded?
Yeah, well, we feel at
Yeah.
home. In fact, often the people we know, like at the hardware store or something in France, they know us really well, but they will say, how's your vacation going? And we will say, what? Because it does not feel like vacation when we're there.
Okay.
So it feels very much like home.
Yes, and we have a large-ish garden there. So like we're food gardening. Yeah, I feel like we're home in France as well.
And as you said, maybe through the language, the fact that you speak and you have those relationships in the village in French, that might help also to really feel part of.
Yes, I do go to an expat knitting group in Nice. Shout out to the Nice knitters. And they are all from mostly Denmark. There is a lady from the States, and there's another lady from England. And we do speak English in that group. But I am very surprised that most of them are not fully fluent in French, and yet are there most of them are there full time.
Do you
So.
reckon it's because also they live in a bigger city? I imagine that there is, it's so easy to have almost it's what we call the expat bubble.
Yes.
Do you think that's the fact that you live in a smaller village without American really shaped your life?
Yes, yeah, and I don't think I personally would not want to be in a big city with the expat community because I'm there for France. Like I'm there to be French. I love it so much. Like we're very chauvin.
I noticed with interviewing other people that there is so much pressure on the real estate market for those places like Nice. If you want to live in Nice in a flat that follows those American standards or like Bordeaux or Paris, there is a lot of pressure. So I imagine in a way to go for smaller places that are not that attractive for tourism, that also resolve a lot of, it makes things easier, I imagine.
Oh, financially, yes. I mean,
For sure.
for sure. You
Yeah.
know, we wanted a house. We wanted a little guest house. They're not large. Our house is the equivalent of 700 square feet, the house that we live in, and the guest house is the equivalent of 300 square feet, so about 30 meters, 30 meters squared. What is the
30 mètres
yes.
carrés. I'm really bad for the conversion between
Yeah.
the measure.
N'importe
But
quoi.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
because we're in English, most people are going to know
Yeah.
English American standards. So yeah, so not large, but a beautiful. We have mountain views. You know, it was. But things like I also don't like a lot of noise and light pollution, so I wanted that country feeling.
Well, and as a couple, so Kelly, you mentioned that Kasha said yes straight away. So were you always aligned for the choice, like the place to go, the organization doing 6 months here, 6 months there? Like, is it easy to be on the same page?
Well, one, I do think we balance each other out. But yeah, I think in terms of our lifestyle, I think we're definitely on the same page. I think we have to be. So
Yeah, and I mean, the only thing I think that we differ on is I do like to travel a little bit more when we're in France, and he just kind of wants to hang out and à la
In
maison.
Sospel.
Yeah,
yeah, not just
Sospel.
in
and
Sospel.
Sospel. I mean, he plays pétanque with all the, as
Ah.
do I, but he's a regular homme de village.
Drive us through like a typical Sospel day. It's Saturday. Like, what do you do? Or what will you do in 1 week time when you be in Sospel? Like, what's a typical day?
Well, it's so a typical day it starts with a cafe,
In
and
a cafe or with a coffee or
No,
in a coffee
chez
place?
nous,
chez nous.
Ah, okay.
espresso.
We're
Okay,
two
espresso.
we're 2 kilometers to the village, and so it's a good distance, but it's it's not easy to just wake up and go to a cafe. We could, but so yeah, it starts out with that, and then when we were searching for a house in France, our criteria was to have a small little space for a garden. We ended up getting about 2 acres, which is
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
which is not a small space. So we have a lot of property. Now, it doesn't all have to be maintained because some of it's trees, but about an acre of it has to be maintained. And so,
Yeah.
there's in the morning we're going to be doing some work in the garden. There's always something to do.
That's your sport. You said that you like you are quite athlete, so that's a natural sport.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and so as we're outside working, that we're going to see one of our neighbors pass, and we're very close to all of our neighbors, and so we're going to start up a conversation. And that's different in the U.S. Like if you're mowing your lawn in the U.S. and your neighbor passes, you might wave. In France, you're going to stop and you're going to have a conversation and find out how they're doing, what they're going to do. And so you just the life is it's a much slower pace of life, and so you stop, you find out what your neighbor is going to be doing, and you probably make plans for doing something with them later that evening in the village, and then,
L'apéritif, l'apéro.
Beef,
yeah.
pétanque, quelque chose.
Yeah, at least once a week, if not twice or maybe 3 times, we have an aperitif with one of our friends and neighbors.
That's really part of the culture too. It's something to
Yeah.
mention, the aperitif.
Yes,
Yeah.
like the first week we're back, we are doing the
Oh.
rounds with all the neighbors, and it's great. I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
It also helps get our French brains back going.
Yeah, it's part
So-
of the
Yes.
journey.
Yeah. And then we usually do a hike or a bike ride. We are in like a magnificent place for hiking and biking. At some point during the day, a little cardiovascular. Like most French people, I do the laundry at night and I hang it in the morning. So like, just kind of the normal house chores of the morning, a workout, lunch, déjeuner. And, dinner is still the biggest meal of the day for us.
Do you do déjeuner et dîner the French way, like those long eating rituals, like with a beautiful table, and like do you eat differently when you are in France?
So I grew up, again with these parents that always sat down to dinner and always without a television, just a little, I did have an upbringing that was a little more European in that sense.
Okay.
Because I've been to other Americans' homes at dinner time where they're just standing and eating, which is shocking to me. Like I would have never
Yeah.
allowed my children to stand and eat a meal. I just
For me, it's literally a cultural shock. This to stand when I'm in New Zealand and I have to stand to eat. It's just for the lunch that they do that. But for me, it's like but we don't see it. It's just really important. I realize that for us, it's an institution like this. Just to sit around the table, look at each other in the eyes, and like it's really part of the culture. I imagine.
we had dinner at a friend's house the other night here in the States, and we taught them how to use the utensils European style, which is, fork left, knife right, and how it slows you down. You're not
Yeah.
shoveling, and so you're much more mindful of your eating, and there's just so many things that are lovely because food is our nourishment, and it's so important to really, value that time and the social time. So I sent you a picture of our table set up for having some neighbors over, and I think one other couple. So quite not formal, but country formal, where you've got water glasses and wine glasses and all the utensils, and yeah.
I guess like you were already a little bit like that in your life back in the US. It's kind of part of you as an international woman. But I imagine it also changes you inside, no? Like to like slow the pace of living. Maybe when you go back to the US, you kind of replicate a little bit this lifestyle.
Yeah, I think we have a mix here in the U.S. When we're here in the United States. So we
Yeah.
bring some of the good things back.
Yeah, but it is hard. America, I always tell people living in the States is like always being in fifth gear in your car, and going to France is like dropping down into second or third gear, right? It's just, you just kind of slow everything down, at least where we are. Again, we are in the country.
In France, yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely have a slower pace of living.
Yeah.
And of course, in the United States, you can find that too. We're just talking in generalities. I mean, there's amazing places in the United States where
Yeah.
there is a slower pace of life.
Of course.
And so we're just talking about our past experience. I mean, Keisha grew up in the Washington, D.C. area, so that is a very fast pace of life. So
It's always the difference between city life and countryside life.
yes,
Like I guess you are more like in the country kind of part also in France. So also if you go and live in the very center of Paris, maybe you find that the people are
yeah,
more like.
Yes.
exactly.
So it's also differs. You sent me some pictures.
Oh, yes.
We already
Okay.
mentioned a few. The first picture, I see the two of you surrounded by probably French people.
We, and we're wearing little ribbons on our clothing. And that is to commemorate the fête patronale
Patronal, je vois.
Yeah.
of the city, patronale of Sospel. And so I am actually wearing, you can't see my skirt, but I'm wearing a yellow top and a blue skirt because those are the colors of our town.
Ah,
And yeah, so of our town's flag. So that is where the mayor gives the state of the village and what's been
what you
done.
mentioned before. Yeah.
And that also involves an aperitif for like
Ah,
200 people.
yeah. We do love our little fête de village. It's
That's what it
very,
was.
very
That's what it
French.
is. Yep.
Yeah.
Fête du
Fête
village.
de village. Then we
Okay.
see Sospel, like le panneau Sospel, le petit
And
village.
people can Google it, but Sospel has a very rich background, a lot of Italian influence. It was on the salt route, as Kelly mentioned. So it's got a beautiful old church that was renovated
Wow.
in the 20th century. So really quite a treat.
Underrated place, it seems. Like,
But we
yeah,
should
maybe.
we want to keep it that way.
Yeah, quiet.
Yeah. That's true.
Okay. The next picture is from going out to a meal in a little village called La Brigue, Brigue. And
You're really bronzé, really tanned.
oh, I get really tan there. Yeah, it's lots of time outdoors.
What's the French? Is it a French wine? I imagine. Blanc.
Yes, this is going to probably be, and I'm a little bit into wine, you live in France. So this is probably a rosé from the Bandol, Bandol, which is a very well-known, very delicious rosé. And then the next picture is of Kelly and I starting a hike from La Brigue, sim trip. and we have kind of goofy faces, but we were having a blast.
Nice. That was the beginning or towards the end of the hike?
It looks like the beginning.
Beginning, yeah.
Okay.
We're pretty fresh
Different
looking.
face at the end. Yeah.
And again, I sent you many pictures from La Brig because they were what was the most recent. And this is just a beautiful mountain view from, I think we stayed at a hotel that night.
Wow.
And okay, then there's a beach picture, which the beauty of living 40 minutes from Italy and from the beach, I actually like to go over to Italy for the beaches. They're much quieter, generally speaking.
How far are you from this Italian beach, for instance, from Sospel?
This was and I drove there because I was also going to do some grocery shopping, about 40 minutes.
And we had to
Doing
stop.
grocery shopping in Italy. Nice.
Yes, we live 10 kilometers, 6 miles from the Italian border. And I love Italian.
Yum.
So, yum, yum, yum. So, yeah, and this is a sand beach, which is also kind of rare along the Mediterranean. So,
Yeah.
and then the last, or another picture is a big group, and we went over, this was in Italy, to a town called Olivetta. And they have a festival of Occitan, which people can look up, the region of France, Italy. Does it go any?
Yeah, this isn't the region of L'Occitane. This is the old.
The old,
Maybe province, we could say, like maybe
Well, it
yes, but it
cultural province.
it had some Spanish influence too.
Yeah.
It's when it was all not the countries that it is today. And they just have a festival with the music of that period. It's very traditional. People
Wow.
wear the costumes and do the dance, and they have a very traditional Italian meal there. And so that's
Nice.
super fun. This year, or last year, 2024, the Tour de France went through our village. So we all went out at night and painted the roads, and this was,
That's you. Allez, allez, allez.
yes.
Ah.
And then a picture of our table set up for a dinner.
So that's your place, this one.
Yes.
Ah, beautiful.
Yes,
Joyeux
it's very
anniversaire.
typique. It's très typique.
Ah, très joli. I like it.
And this is the next pictures of our garden. These are the
Ooh,
the
le
way they
potager.
potager.
yeah.
And this is the way they set up tomatoes. My neighbor Elizabeth, shout out to Elizabeth. She helps me set up my garden every year because I always change what I want to plant. And like last year, I had, I don't know, 50 kilograms of zucchini, and that's too much.
Yeah.
So
You mentioned to me that having the vegetable garden, it's also part of the integration and like, I don't know, to do like seed swaps or like to work with the neighbor. It really like, it's part of the adventure as well, no?
yes, and so important in this where we live. Many people have some sort of food growing, and it's a great point to like I go to the little Gamme Verte, which is like Gamme Vert, a store that sells things for the garden, and just ask them questions. Even if I could Google it, but I would love to hear the real like,
Yeah.
what do you recommend? And then some pictures of some bike riding, me and a girlfriend. We do have many American friends that come visit us every year.
Imagine. Yeah, you for the people who like cycling and are a bit sporty, you kind of are selling the dream. It's like, oh, that looks so great.
Yes, and we do have the little guest house space, which does make it
Yeah.
very nice so people can have their own
Yeah.
space.
Plus, they have free translators.
That's true too. And then here is Kelly.
Yeah.
And where are you?
The Côte de la Bonnette, which is the highest mountain pass in France, or in Europe, I think.
Yeah.
Was it cold on the top?
So I just ridden, so I was generating heat, so that's why I'm not overdressed. But yeah, if I was to stop, it was pretty cold, not freezing, but yeah, it was pretty cold, but it felt good at that point.
Wow.
And you can see there's still snow, and this was in Juillet, in July, and
Yeah.
still snow. So
So how high is it?
It's 29 2,900 meters.
Meters.
Yeah.
I actually it came to mind. How do you find people on the road in France?
So in our village,
I mean, excellent.
yeah, no, they're great. I think they're great drivers. We live in a commuter village where, people have to go 45 minutes often they drive to Monaco.
Yes, we have a lot of people that work in Monaco and live in Sospel.
And so they do drive fast too. But in terms of how they deal with cyclists, they're very good drivers. And so we never have any problems. So yeah, I think they're good, but they definitely aren't slow. They
Okay,
definitely
that's
drive
good to
fast.
know.
But they're so good. Like we've ridden we've ridden in Slovenia, Croatia, Italy, Mexico, all over the United States, Morocco. I mean, France for me,
Yeah.
best drivers with bikes.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we've even ridden in
yeah.
Nice. So even in the city, I think, there is some understanding of cycling as a part of the culture.
Yeah. Do you do also a bike tour, where you bring the tent and you camp? No, you don't do this kind of.
I've done it once or twice before. Kasha, she likes to have a good shower after a bike
I
ride.
like a real shower and a real bed, honey.
Okay, okay.
So
It's not
anyway,
this kind of, yeah.
but we can
I
do
was
it.
wondering because since COVID, it's really popular now because in France you are allowed to put the bike in the train, and
Yes.
it becomes really popular to travel this way. And I can see a lot of people like me that never cycled really full time, but that they are trying to do it and do longer trip like that with the bike. I think it's getting more popular.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I see that we already
Yes.
overpassed an hour, but I just wanted to add as a finishing line, if you want to give your best advice to the people who are listening to us, maybe the people who are about to take the leap, they're about to go to France, but they maybe have some fears, or they just want inspiration or advice, or maybe the people who are in France, but they feel a little bit stuck in this expat bubble, and they just want to, maybe you have something to say to them.
Okay, I'll go first. So I would say, YOLO, you only live once. I'm very much like a take the leap and do things. I do think for us, 6 months is really the sweet spot because we are still grounded in our, American family and friends, but then also have this whole other life. And obviously, none of it's possible if you're not speaking the language, even if it's not well, and even if your pronunciation is horrible. I have close enough friends now that they will correct me and help me, but everyone else is pretty, they don't care. If you can get the gist out of your phrase or your question, take it from there. Back when we started learning, there weren't tutors like you really available. We use some very old school methods of learning. But I think if you can benefit, if one has the means and really wants to learn French, they need to have someone who can help them one-on-one. So that would be mine.
Yeah, and what I would say is I was very humbled at how hard it was to learn a language, as an adult. And it took, probably 5 years longer than I thought it would take to get to the level that I was hoping to be. But it was so worthwhile. And there's so many experiences we've had in France, and I can't think of a single negative one. They've all been positive, it's because we put effort into it, I know, but it's so worth the journey. But I must say, it's not an easy journey. I've watched other people attempt to learn a language, and they're also finding out that it is very hard. So you just have to know going into it that this is really hard. It's as hard as probably getting a bachelor's in engineering, but it's all worth it.
Any phrase in French that you want to share, like une phrase en français, une
phrase.
expression?
Oh, toutes les expressions.
Il y a beaucoup de... j'adore toutes les expressions. J'ai d'autres chats à fouetter.
D'autres chats à fouetter. Ah, j'aime. Parfois, je dis ça à mon copain en anglais, mais il ne comprend pas. J'aime cette expression. On a d'autres chats à fouetter. Ouais, très joli. Et toi, Kasha, il y a une expression qui te parle en français que tu aimes?
Well, I do love the phrase coup de cœur because we
de
don't
cœur.
really have that in English. We
Non.
don't have a phrase that is like a lightning strike of your heart. You know,
Ouais.
we just don't have the emotional expressions in English as much as the French
Yeah.
do. So
Coup de cœur. J'aime aussi cette expression, coup de cœur. Well, très bien.
Voilà.
Merci beaucoup
Merci.
pour votre participation. Et we were mentioning before that probably we'll have a second interview at some point back in France, so we can see you with your natural French environment and in another setting with another background, maybe some stones, or I don't know how is your house there.
yes.
But yeah, looking forward to it, and thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Merci à
Merci
vous.
beaucoup, Deborah.
And I'm pretty sure that you are going to read the comments. So if people want to comment on what's been said, I'm pretty sure that Kasha and Kelly are going to read you.
Yes, for sure.
Absolument.
Okay,
Merci beaucoup.
Ciao, ciao.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
À bientôt. Merci Kasha, merci Kelly. And if you like the video, please subscribe. That will give me a smile, and like this you make sure that you don't miss the next interview. I've got some pretty nice interview in storage. So à bientôt. See you soon.